Speak softly and carry a big stick. 2. Prime Lord of Battle, Commander of the Human Front, Dreg the Undefeated, Santel Hegemony. From Supreme Admiral of the Navies, Sarah Toe, United Human Commonwealth of Planets. It is within my understanding that the Santel main fleet had engaged with our own Third Fleet earlier today. The Council has offered the use of one of their diplomatic ships to be used as a neutral ground for our two peoples to discuss a ceasefire and peace treaty. I request you either send yourself or an envoy with a diplomatic team to the Council orbital port of Hissamwe, where they will meet with ours and arrange the end of hostilities. With any luck, we may contact the two fleets currently in battle and have the rendezvous with us to manage the exchange of prisoners. The tension was thick. The human team was sitting across a table with their enemies for the last 5 months. For those 5 months, skirmishes and raids were waged on minor settlements and convoys. But now fleet was trading blows with fleet. It was everything the Santel wanted. Doctrine was focused on the decisive victory, the destruction of the enemy's offensive power, and holding him at your mercy as you dictated terms of peace. And how could victory be anything less than certain? The main fleet was several times the size of the third, in both capitals and screens, and could draw on a history spanning thousands of years. The humans didn't stand a chance. All eyes in the room, 30 humans, Santel and various council officials in all, were locked on the leaders of the opposing teams. Both were admirals, both dedicated their lives to their respective navy, and both earned a reputation of competence. Beyond that, they were chalk and cheese. Admiral Averill was brash and bombastic. 210 centimeters tall, he was large and well built. As per tradition, he was wearing ornate but durable battle armor, able to stop a longsword if needed to, a relic of a time when inter-service rivalries were settled by duel. His face, made menacing by his strong features and sharp teeth, was topped by a metal helmet. His own longsword was relieved from him before boarding the ship, but he was still able to rip apart his opposite number if he wanted to. Admiral Nelson Sandy was shorter than most humans, at 170 centimeters. A quiet man with graying hair and a weak left arm, his outward appearance suggested he was no threat. He too was in uniform, a spotless dark blue Navy uniform with a double-breasted jacket, trousers, and leather shoes. Medals telling of his younger days adorned the left side of his chest, but was kept controlled. On his head rested a peaked cap. His ceremonial sword he was allowed to keep, and white velvet gloves covered his frail hands. "Let us begin, shall we?" The Santel team was smug in their superiority over the humans. Beforehand, they were discussing what land they would claim as their own once it was handed over to the hegemony. Averill replied to the call for discussion first. "Yes, we shall. May I begin by congratulating the humans for lasting this long? Honestly, we believed you would instantly grovel at our feet. But you put up a good fight. May the humans who fell in this war enjoy eternal sanctuary." The rest of the Santel team responds with a cheer. Not one muscle in Sandy's face twitched, remaining cold and neutral. "I would save the toast until I learned who has actually killed who, Admiral." Averill's disposition went from jovial to condescending as he stared down his shorter counterpart. "Admiral, we have both spent a long time in this business, and we can make the same predictions. In how many ways had the main outnumbered and outgunned your third? I understand you have some promising officers, but if by nothing less than sheer numbers, the victor was always guaranteed." Silence occupied the room, broken by murmurs of agreement from the Santel and even some of the council officials. Not one word was uttered by a human. Averill continued, "It will be a while before the fleets arrive, assuming both are still intact. So we should start with the treaty now. The Senate has already approved a treaty to be laid upon you, and I have it here." Upon signing this document, both the Santel hegemony and the United Human Commonwealth of Planets agree to an end of hostilities. The UHCP agrees to the following concessions in recognition of decisive Santel victory. 1. Human settlements in the following systems: New Cape, Mingxing, Nimitz, is to be evacuated within 10 standard years in preparation for colonization by the Santel hegemony. 2. The UHCP is to withdraw its claims to the Council on settling systems in the Perseus Arm. 3. The UHCP Navy is to retire a certain number of its battleships to set the ratio of battleships between the UHCP and the Santel hegemony to 1. 4. The UHCP is to claim full responsibility for the war on the grounds of antagonizing the Santel hegemony in the attempt of, "I'm going to have to stop you there, Admiral," blurted Sandy. Egdral's eyes lifted from the treaty he was reading to match those of the human. The human's mouth was still closed, with a straight frown, but the rest of his face was different. Where he once saw amiable reserve, Egral could only see a quiet ferocity. His eyebrows arched downwards, above a nose turned upwards, verging on disgust at the treaty. His eyes were worst. A fire burned inside them, one a predator may have when enjoying the thrill of stalking its prey. Considering you have no idea as to the success or failure of the battle, for you to begin dictating these draconian terms is an insult to our species. Losing all respect he had for the human, Egral snarled. You refuse to see when a battle has been lost. You have nothing to barter for a better treaty. Your position will only worsen as the days go by. Lose your pride now, or lose your blood later. Sirs! All eyes went to the yeoman, who raised his voice. We're detecting FTL signatures. Hundreds of ships. It looks to be the survivors of both fleets traveling together. Egral rubbed his chin. Together? That is odd. Put them on the screen, yeoman. The vid screen in the room linked to a sensor platform on the outskirts of the port. Within the region of space it was pointing at, the fleets, was estimated to drop out of FTL and begin their sublight journey to the dock. Fleet leaving FTL in 3.02. The Santel gasped in horror. The main fleet, the pride of the Santel military, was reduced to crawling wrecks. Radar and emission scans showed huge holes in the hulls of some of the finest capitals in the Navy, venting coolant and lubricants, but not oxygen, breached compartments having lost their atmosphere long ago. The heat sinks on the various hulls were glowing and melted, implying the ships were taxed heavily in battle and exhausted. But that wasn't the worst sight. On their sides were strips of microwave emitters placed on the hulls after damage was done. They were emitting a recognizable, regular pattern of EM waves, a checkerboard pattern. The interstellar symbol for captured warships was a checkerboard pattern. The main fleet were prisoners of war. Around the tortured hulls, human ships provided screens. Themselves damaged, but far from fatally, it even looked like some were directing the captured ships unable to move under their own power. We're receiving a signal from HSS Behemoth. That would be Third Fleet's flagship? Sandy chirped up. I hope Roger has been taking care of my ship. The screen went from viewing the fleet to a camera on board the Behemoth, in what appeared to be the bridge. Aside from the Admiral of the Third Fleet, Yi Shin, with the captain of the flagship, Roger Locke, and the bridge crew, the diplomatic teams could see Santel officers. Some Egral could recognize, stripped of insignia and looking as battered and exhausted as their fleet. One of them stepped forward at the call of a human officer. As Admiral of the Santel main fleet, I put myself and my command at the mercy of the United Human Commonwealth of Planets under oath of unconditional surrender. Egral was beginning to panic, unable to see how the fleet could have possibly been decimated. What did the humans do? The color drained from his face and he began to sweat, feeling the pressure of losing the initiative. He turned to once again look straight at Sandy, who by contrast was wearing the smallest grin. Sandy began to speak. You are to offer your surrender and bear the terms we put upon you. Refuse and we destroy the rest of your military. Refuse again and we attack civilian targets. Something dawned of Egral. You knew about this before we came here. You kept in contact with your fleet. How did you do that without messenger ships or comm buoys? In contrast to Egral's growing desperation, Sandy remained cool and collected and replied slowly and calmly. That is for you to find out. Your fleet surrendered 2 days ago, and Admiral Shin was ordered to take the fleet prisoner and ready it to be transported here in chains. Then why ask us to come out here? To make you watch us beat you. If you continue to fight, our losses will decrease, and our ability to replace them will increase. Your losses will increase, and your ability to replace them will decrease. Surrender now before we run out of mercy.